Today, we're diving into the untold stories behind the godmother of soul, Patti LaBelle, and the 7 legendary women who shaped her music, her voice, and her journey. From dazzling friendships to behind-the-scenes rivalries, these powerful connections reveal the truth about how Patti became one of the most iconic voices of all time. Buckle up, because this countdown will change the way you see music history forever.
7. Diana Ross is more than a singer. She is a cultural blueprint for elegance, charisma, and star power. Rising to fame as the voice of the Supremes, she helped shape Motown into a global phenomenon and redefined what it meant to be a female superstar. For Patti LaBelle, Diana Ross was not simply a peer, but a living example of how a woman could take command of the stage and transform music into an art of presence. In her early years as a solo artist, Patti was still navigating the path beyond her group LaBelle. Diana, by contrast, had already mastered the art of reinvention, stepping out from the Supremes and into the spotlight with absolute authority. Patti often studied Ross's stagecraft in secret, how she moved, how she commanded silence, how a simple gesture could captivate thousands. It wasn't only the music, it was the discipline, the grace, and the way Diana carried herself that left an impression on Patti. Of course, their relationship wasn't seamless from the beginning. Their first backstage encounters were famously tense, Patti shy and overwhelmed, Diana distant and guarded. Two powerful women with very different energies weren't going to click instantly. But over time, especially through the legendary VH1 Divas Live specials, their admiration grew into real friendship. By then, Patti had long found her own voice and identity, but Diana's influence could be heard in the refinement of her later performances, songs like New Attitude and If You Asked Me To. What makes their connection so remarkable is how both women mirrored each other's journeys, from girl group roots to solo icons, from struggling dreamers to global symbols. Patti LaBelle often said that Diana taught her the power of presence, that being a diva was not about arrogance, but about carrying yourself with dignity, purpose.
Lorraine Ellison may not be the most famous name to casual listeners, but for true music lovers, and especially for Patti LaBelle, she was a hidden gem who left an unforgettable mark. Born in Philadelphia, just like Patti, Lorraine carried the raw, gospel-infused soul that could stop you in your tracks. Her voice wasn't about polish or glamour. It was about pure emotion, delivered straight from the heart. The story goes that Patti first discovered Lorraine during a time of uncertainty in her own career. After the struggles of transitioning from her group LaBelle into a solo act, she found herself searching for new inspiration. That's when she stumbled upon Lorraine's heartbreaking ballad, Stay With Me. According to insiders, Patti played that song on repeat for days, studying every run, every cry, and every ounce of emotion Lorraine poured into her music. It wasn't just admiration, it was a kind of spiritual awakening. Lorraine's ability to move seamlessly from delicate whispers to powerhouse belts became a model for Patti's own vocal journey. This influence is why so many fans describe Patti's performances as both church-like and theatrical. She wasn't copying Lorraine, but she was absorbing the lessons of emotional honesty in music. What makes this connection so fascinating is how private it remained. Patti rarely spoke publicly about Lorraine, almost as if she wanted to protect the sacredness of that influence. The two didn't perform together often, but their bond ran deep, rooted in the shared soil of Philadelphia soul. Lorraine Ellison may not have achieved mainstream superstardom, but her spirit lived on in Patti's artistry. Every time Patti hits a note that feels like it comes from the depths of her soul, you can hear a little bit of Lorraine echoing through her voice. For Patti, Lorraine wasn't just an influence. She was proof that real power in music comes from vulnerability, honesty, and raw emotional truth.
5. Chaka Khan. When we talk about powerhouse voices, there's one name that always comes up alongside Patti LaBelle: Chaka Khan. Known as the Queen of Funk, Chaka's fiery stage presence and fearless style made her both an inspiration and, at times, a rival for Patti. Their connection is a fascinating story of competition, respect, and ultimately, sisterhood. In the 1970s, both women were carving their solo paths. Patti had just stepped out of the group LaBelle, while Chaka was exploding onto the scene with Rufus and later as a solo artist. Music executives, always hungry for drama, tried to pit them against each other. Some insiders even said record label meetings would literally compare Patti's soaring belts to Chaka's funky, raspy tones, as if deciding who have the better voice. Behind the scenes, this created tension. Producers who worked with both women whispered that they would sneak listens to each other's unreleased songs. Chaka once reportedly said Patti had a voice strong enough to break glass, while Patti admitted that Chaka's funk-inspired energy made her want to add more grit to her own style. But instead of letting the industry divide them, Patti and Chaka eventually came together. In the late 1980s, during a private conversation, they decided to stop competing and start lifting each other up. That moment of honesty transformed their relationship from rivals into allies. Today, when we see them touring together, like on the legendary Queens of Soul tours, it's clear that their bond is one of mutual admiration. They push each other, they challenge each other, and yes, there's still playful sparring when it comes to who can hold the longer note or reach the higher register. But at its core, their connection is about celebrating two unique voices that shaped modern soul and R&B. Chaka Khan brought funk to the soul world. Patti LaBelle brought raw gospel fire. Together, they created a legacy of strength, independence, and unapologetic artistry. And for Patti, Chaka wasn't just a peer. She was proof that women in soul could own their power without compromise.
4. Gladys Knight. When you think about soul music royalty, Gladys Knight and Patti LaBelle are two names that immediately rise to the top. Both were church-trained vocalists who turned their voices into powerful instruments of emotion and truth. But their story together wasn't always about harmony. It was also about subtle rivalry, deep respect, and one unforgettable turning point. Back in the 1970s and 80s, radio programmers used to say there was an unspoken competition between Patti and Gladys. Patti was known as the godmother of soul, while Gladys carried the title Empress of Soul. Both women were pushing to define what female R&B excellence looked like, and sometimes that overlap created tension. Some DJs even admitted they avoided playing their songs back to back because the comparisons were too obvious. Behind the curtain, there were whispers of shade. One sound engineer remembered a rehearsal in the 1990s where Gladys made a remark about Patti's runs being too much, and Patti shot back with a playful but pointed comment about Gladys playing it too safe. The tension got so heavy that they rehearsed separately that day. But legends don't stay divided for long. When they came together for major televised performances, like their joint appearances and later their Versa's battle, everything changed. What started as rivalry transformed into a display of unity, proving that when their voices blended, they created something almost spiritual. That Verzuz wasn't just entertainment. It was a peace treaty, a celebration of black womanhood, resilience, and decades of soul history. Today, the friendship between Patti and Gladys is a reminder that competition can evolve into collaboration. They both carved out their lanes in soul, yet together they showed the world the beauty of mutual respect. Patti herself has said that Gladys's smoothness taught her balance, while her own fire pushed Gladys to take risks. In the end, these two women didn't just sing soul music. They embodied it. Gladys Knight brought storytelling in velvet tones. Patti LaBelle brought raw passion and vocal fire. Together, they proved that soul has many shades, and every shade is powerful.
3. Nina Simone. For Patti LaBelle, few relationships were as life-changing as the one she shared with Nina Simone. This wasn't just about music. It was about identity, courage, and transformation. Nina was more than a singer. She was a force of nature, a truth-teller who challenged everyone around her to dig deeper and live braver. When Patti first encountered Nina Simone in the early 1980s, the meeting was explosive. A musician who was there recalled Nina walking up to Patti after a performance and saying, "You've got the fire, but you're holding back." That bold critique could have cut anyone else down, but Patti took it as a challenge. That night, the two women reportedly talked for hours, with Nina pushing Patti to embrace fearlessness, both on stage and in life. Nina's influence seeped into every part of Patti's artistry. Before their friendship, Patti was known for her powerhouse vocals, but she often played it polite in business meetings and industry politics. Nina changed that. She taught Patti to demand respect, to never apologize for her talent, and to use her platform as a voice for truth. Nina embodied unapologetic authenticity, and Patti absorbed those lessons like gospel. Their bond went beyond music. It became a sisterhood. Patti often spoke of Nina's raw honesty and how it inspired her to peel back her own layers as an artist. And when Nina passed away in 2003, Patti sang at her memorial service. Witnesses said she could barely make it through the performance, overwhelmed with grief. That moment wasn't just a goodbye. It was proof of how deeply Nina had shaped her soul. For Patti, Nina Simone wasn't just an influence. She was a compass, guiding her toward boldness, self-respect, and a deeper connection to the music of struggle and triumph. Together they represented two sides of the same coin, one fiery and theatrical, the other haunting and uncompromising. Their friendship proved that true artistry isn't about notes alone. It's about living the truth behind them.
2. Mariah Carey. When people talk about Patti LaBelle's legacy, they often mention the greats who came before her. But what makes Patti's story so unique is the way she also shaped those who came after her, none more famously than Mariah Carey. Most fans know Patti as Mariah's godmother, but the bond between them runs much deeper than a title. In the early 1990s, when Mariah was still finding her place in the music industry, Patti became a guiding light. She offered advice, emotional support, and, most importantly, an example of how a woman could own her power in an industry that often tried to silence strong voices. Patti had been through it all, and she wanted to make sure Mariah never felt alone. But here's the twist most people don't realize. The mentorship went both ways. While Patti was teaching Mariah about resilience and survival, Mariah was quietly helping Patti refine her own craft. Insiders say Mariah introduced Patti to new vocal techniques, showing her how to protect her voice for longevity. Patti's powerhouse belts were legendary, but Mariah's precision and technical mastery offered tools that kept Patti strong for decades longer. Their relationship became more than music.
When Mariah went through public struggles in the early 2000s, Patti was there as a safe space, a mother figure who reminded her of her worth. And in return, Mariah helped Patti connect with younger audiences, keeping her timeless voice relevant in a changing industry. What makes this bond extraordinary is how it shattered the usual script. Instead of competition between two divas, it became a partnership, a family. Patti often says that watching Mariah rise to superstardom made her proud, not threatened. It was proof that the next generation was carrying the torch. For Patti LaBelle, Mariah Carey wasn't just a protege. She was a daughter in music and in life. And together, they remind us that true greatness isn't about outshining someone. It's about lifting each other higher.
1. Aretha Franklin. When we talk about Patti LaBelle's influences and relationships, no name looms larger than the Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin. Their connection wasn't just about admiration. It was about legacy, respect, and a bond that defined the very heart of soul music. Patti has always been open about her love for Aretha. She called her the greatest singer in the world and often said that Aretha was her hero. Both women came from the church, carrying gospel roots into mainstream music, and both turned that foundation into careers that shook the world. But what made their relationship so powerful was the balance between respect and challenge. Patti admired Aretha deeply, yet standing alongside her pushed Patti to elevate her own artistry. Behind the scenes, their bond was a mix of warmth and weight. Industry insiders have said that the respect between them was so profound it sometimes created pressure. Sharing a stage with Aretha wasn't just an honor, it was a test. But Patti always rose to the occasion, proving that she could stand shoulder to shoulder with the Queen herself. Perhaps the most emotional moment came in 2018 when Aretha passed away. Before her death, she had one final request. She wanted Patti to sing at her funeral. Imagine that. The Queen of Soul's last wish was to be sent home by the godmother of soul. That alone speaks volumes about the depth of their relationship. Patti admitted later that moment was almost too heavy to bear, but she knew it was her duty to honor her friend. Together, Patti and Aretha were more than singers. They were symbols of resilience, power, and authenticity in music. And through their friendship, they proved that true legends don't compete, they complete each other.